Dear students, hope you are all well. So today we will begin with the next topic in geography. The name of our lesson is agriculture. Now we all know that agriculture is mostly practiced in India in the villages. Okay, in the village areas mostly people do the work of agriculture where they grow different kinds of crops. Okay, so now let's move further with the chapter. Now you have to see at figure 9.1. Now look at this figure over here and discuss the following questions. So the first question, what does this say? What all do you see in the picture? Now, what do we see in the picture? We see in the picture that the people are engaged in doing some work. All the whoever people or whatever people or whoever we can see in the picture, we are seeing that they are doing some or the other work. Okay, the next question says, why has the family kept goats and hens? Now, why have they kept? They have kept goats so that they can get something from it. Okay, from the hens they can get eggs, so that's why they have kept them. Okay, let's see the next question. Which implements are seen in the picture? Now different kinds of implements we can see. There we can see to dig, right, to dig the soil. There are different implements which are there and which is required in agricultural work. Next question says, in which major occupation type will the activity shown here be included? Now, what are all these people doing? When they are engaged in all these activities, what are they actually doing? Which kind of occupation it is? It is agriculture. Next question. What could be the main occupation of these people? The answer will be the same as the previous question, that is agriculture. Now, who could be the owner in this house? Who will be the owner in this house? Now, the owner in this house will be a person who is the head of the family. That will be the farmer, okay, who looks after the farm. And the last question says, which product shown in the above picture do you use daily? Now, we use different things like meat, eggs, right? All these things, eggs, milk, we use them daily. Let's move further with the explanation part. Now in the picture shown above, we see a standing crop. You can see over here there is a standing crop behind the animals. You can see that's called as a standing crop, a plowshare, etc. From this, it becomes obvious that this is a farmer's house, as I told you. A farmer keeps hens, sheep, goats, and cattle. They are also seen in the picture. Now, why do he keep all this animal? Because he gets milk, eggs, etc. from them. He sells hens, goats to earn money. Now, if he has a lot of hens, lot of goats, what do he do? He sells those goats so that he will get in return money. He does all this for his subsistence, means for his living. He needs to do something. So when he sells the hens, goat, he gets money for his living. All these occupations depend on natural factors. All these fall under agriculture. These occupations are supplementary to the cultivation of crops. Agriculture has a wide scope. Now we only think agriculture is just growing crops, but it has a lot of scope that we will see in this chapter. All these fall under agriculture. These occupation, okay. For our basic needs of food and clothing, we make use of plants and animals, right? We get certain things from plants, from animals, which we use it, which we used to have it, we used to eat it, right? Besides the cultivation of different crops, we require rearing cattle, sheep and goats, maintaining poultry farm, keeping bees, sericulture, horticulture, orchidry, pisciculture, pig farming, emu farming, etc. are all included in agriculture. So all these things that I read just now, they are all included in agriculture and we will learn about them in detail. Now, in agricultural occupation, resources like manpower. So, we require to do some kind of work in agriculture. Then we require animals, we require implements, etc. All these things are used. And also nowadays advanced technology is employed. We have tractors, we have different kinds of irrigation like sprinkle irrigation, right? So these are advanced technology. In agriculture, cultivation of crops is considered to be the main and the most important occupation. Let's move further. Now they're telling you observe the pictures given above. What differences do you observe through these pictures? Now what do we see? There are different changes in agricultural practices. First we used to do plowing with cows. Now we do it with tractors. First we used to put water to the plants with our hands, right? Now we have the sprinkle irrigation. So there are different agricultural practices. Let us move further with the chapter. Now in the above picture we see the changes in agricultural practice. Okay, we need to change. Because why we need to change? Because our work can be done faster. In the past, primitive man had to wander in the forest to sustain himself on the collected forest produce. We all know during the olden times what the man had to depend completely on the forest, hunting, fishing, gathering of food, right? Later, he learned the art of cultivation and started getting greater production from the land. Through this, he could provide for the whole year's need for food grains. He could store that food grains for the whole year. He also started obtaining a number of products through floriculture. Floriculture is cultivation of different flowering plants. Horticulture, rearing animals. Pisciculture is rearing of fish, etc. Abandoning nomadic life, he undertook different occupations. So he started different occupation in agriculture, related to agriculture at the same place. Now, let us get introduced to the different occupation that come under the scope of agriculture. We use the products of these occupation in our everyday life. These traditional occupations are allied activities in agriculture. So first we are going to learn about animal husbandry. Now what is animal husbandry? Is rearing different animals. That means taking care of different animals. And in return we get something from the animals like meat, milk, eggs. Okay, so rearing different animals and obtaining various products from them for subsistence is the core of animal husbandry. Okay, under that we learn about dairy farming. Now what is dairy farming? From where we get all the dairy products like milk products. We get it ghee, butter, cheese. Okay, so let's see from which animals do we get. Cows, oxen, buffaloes, etc. are reared for agriculture related work. We all know that these animals are, they mostly do work in the agricultural work. Rearing milch animals and animals which can be employed in farming is also an occupation. Now, what is milch animals? Animals which provide milk, which gives us milk. They are called as milch animals. It is considered to be an inseparable part of mixed farming. It has become quite commercial in recent time. In India, it has started changing recently. Commercial dairy farming is mainly undertaken for meat and milk. Okay. Now let us move to the next, that is sheep and goat rearing. Now this is also a traditional occupation, that means an old occupation that is generally carried out in hilly tracts and semi-arid regions with dry climate. Why is it carried in hilly tracts? Because sheep and goats we find in the hilly and mountainous regions. Sheep and goats survive on short grasses. So what do they eat? Short grasses, shrubs and acacia, which grow in remote hilly rural areas away from urban settlements. In India, it is mainly undertaken for meat. That means from goat we get meat, and sheep rearing is carried out to obtain wool. Okay, that's why this occupation is also engaged in India. Next, let us move to poultry. Now, what is poultry? Where we keep different kinds of birds like the chicken, Fowl is like a bird called turkey. Okay, so let's see. Keeping hens and other fowl is a common practice in all parts of the world. It is a traditional occupation. Today, it is carried out as a household occupation and also on a commercial basis. Household occupation means people are keeping hens in their house. So it's called as a household occupation. So whenever they need, they can get something. Okay. Running a poultry on a commercial basis requires a lot of care. Now, to run a poultry, to keep different kinds of birds that are chicken, turkeys, rabbits, it needs a lot of care. You can't just ignore them, you have to take care. For this, scientific methods are employed. In India, this occupation is generally located in the areas close to big cities as they provide a ready market for this occupation. In some areas, rabbit, pig, and emu rearing is also undertaken. That means in some parts of India, there are rabbits, pig, and emu also rearing. Next, let us to move on to beekeeping. Now, this occupation is undertaken to obtain honey and wax. What do we get from beekeeping? Honey and wax. Bees, in order to collect honey, hover over the plants that bear flowers. Now, how do they get honey? How do we get honey? What do these bees do? They move around the plants, and where there are flowering plants, they sit on that and pull out the honey and then go to their honeycombs and collect it over there. As a result, the trees bear large number of fruits and the crop yields increase. Beekeeping is an important occupation with respect to agriculture. So this is also an important occupation in agriculture. Next, let us move on to pisciculture. Now, pisciculture is fish farming. Farm ponds are dug out for this purpose. Now, you know that there are two kinds of fishes which people eat. That is freshwater fishes and the fishes from the sea, that is salt water. Okay, so farm ponds are dug out for this purpose. They are making ponds. Water is stored in such ponds. Fish seeds are released in the ponds. For this, seeds of freshwater species are used. In order to achieve the best growth of fish, scientific methods are employed. Fishing in open seas has a number of risk factors. That means when you go fishing in the sea, it has a lot of risk because the sea is rough sometimes, right? So you have to be courageous to go for fishing. Different types of fish and other aquatic organisms get caught in the fishing nets. You know, now when people go for fishing, they catch fish with the fishing net. So what happens when they catch the fish with the fishing net? There are different kinds of fishes which get caught. Separating them becomes a major task. Then what we need to do, we need to separate or segregate the fish. Different fishes we have to keep differently. All organisms do not fetch the same price. Now, when you go to buy the saltwater fishes, you see the price is very high. Some are low, some are high. Depends upon the fish. All these factors lead to the rearing of specific type of fish species separately. Pisciculture developed out of these efforts. Now, what different saltwater fishes are? Worm, roha, rawis, Indian salmon, prawns, etc. are reared in fish farms. Now let us move on to the next point, that is sericulture. Sericulture is where we obtain silk. Silk thread is obtained from the cocoon of the silk moth. Silk moth is a large caterpillar. These threads are very fine and strong, and from these one can weave soft silk cloth. Okay, we get it from the caterpillar. Getting silk thread, form cocoons and manufacturing silk cloth are independent occupation. They are included in agriculture. Different organizations supply silk moth eggs to the farmers. Leaves of mulberry trees are the main food for this silkworm. So what do the silkworm eat? Mulberry trees leaves. Once planted, the mulberry trees survive for a minimum period of 15 years. Hence, the expenditure of planting the trees every year is saved. So, you don't have to grow this mulberry trees every year because it lives for 15 years. Next, let us move on to nursery. Now, in the last few years, we have seen that mostly people like growing different kinds of plants. Okay, so because of that, you see there are lots of nurseries also. Let us see. The area under floriculture, that is growing flowering plants, cultivation of medicinal and aromatic plants. We even like to grow medicinal plants like neem, tulsi, okay? And horticulture has increased, so people have made their own gardens. These plantations require a high standard of seedlings. Now, how can you grow these plants? You can grow it with seeds, you can grow it with cuttings, okay, with small branches. Some plants you can grow with some branches, bulbs, with the roots and seeds. Okay, this is the way you can grow plants. This has led to the development of nurseries. So nowadays, you can see that there are lots of nurseries. Nurseries give good returns. Now let us move on to greenhouse farming. Now greenhouse farming facilitates getting maximum product from the land. It can have a total control on natural factors like climate, heat, atmospheric moisture as well as soil moisture. It assists in getting maximum economic benefits. Greenhouse farming is highly specialized type of farming of the modern era. For erecting a greenhouse, galvanized iron pipes and plastic sheets are used. You can see the picture of a greenhouse farming. How is it done? Its main aim is what? To control the pest attack by controlling water, light and temperature. Greenhouses are used on a large scales for growing flowers like lily, gerberia. Gerberia is a flowering plant, looks like sunflower. It grows in cold regions to give maximum economic returns. Now let us learn about the different types of farming. Okay, different types of agriculture has evolved due to geographical and cultural diversity and technological difference in different regions. The type of farming depends upon the purpose and aims of methods of farming. The crops being cultivated, the techniques used, land use, etc. Broadly, the following types of agriculture can be identified. Now you can see over there, there's a diagram, types of farming. There are two types of farming, subsistence farming, commercial farming. Under subsistence farming, we have two types of farming, and under commercial farming, we have four types of farming. So under subsistence farming, we have intensive farming and shifting cultivation. And under commercial farming, we have extensive grain farming, plantation farming, market gardening, and horticulture. Let us learn in detail about the subsistence farming. Now, intensive farming and shifting cultivation are the two types in traditional farming. Intensive farming is carried out in one and the same farm for years together. In shifting cultivation, every year a new area is chosen for cultivation. After a specific period of time, all areas are again used for cultivation. Now, in intensive farming, what happens? You grow the crops in the same region. After that, when the crops are grown, you can grow that plant again over there. But in shifting cultivation, what happens? Once you grow, after that, you have to use a new area or new land. Okay? Let's learn about intensive farming first. Getting maximum production from a minimum area is a characteristic of intensive farming. Due to large population or limited availability of land per head holding is small. This type of farming is mostly seen in developing regions. Where the countries developed, you see mostly this farming over there. Farm production is sufficient only for the requirement of the family. In this type of farming, the cultivator and his family are totally dependent on farming. As farm production is low, the economic condition of the cultivator is also poor. Now let's move on to the next point. In this type of farming, mostly animate energy is used. Besides the cereals, vegetables are also grown to some extent. So what types of crops are grown in intensive farming? Cereals, there are different kinds of vegetables are also grown. Let us move on to shifting cultivation. Now shifting cultivation is a primitive type of cultivation. This type of cultivation is practiced in the tropic in densely forested areas. That means in hilly region, this shifting cultivation is practiced. The farmer initially selects a piece of land in the forest. Okay. In order to make it cultivable, he clears the land by cutting down the trees, plants, removing the shrubs and grass. Now, how this cultivation is done? The farmer sees the piece of land, he cuts the dead shrubs or the trees which are there, and then he starts growing the new plants. Once the cut trees dry out, he burns them. The leftover ashes gets mixed in the soil and acts as a manure. So when he burns the tree, the ashes which are left out, okay, that goes into the soil and that acts like a manure, okay, a food for the plant. Sowing and harvesting is done before the rainy season. The production obtained from this is not sufficient to fulfill the food requirement. Hence, people undertake hunting, fishing, and gathering of bulbs and roots from forest. In this type of farming, the fallow period is longer than the crop period. After the productivity of the land depletes in 2 to 3 years, a different piece of land is selected for cultivation. As I told you, shifting cultivation is not done in one area. They keep moving and they cultivate in other area as well. Let us move on to the next, that is commercial farming. Extensive grain farming and plantation agriculture are the two major types covered under commercial farming. The first we learn about the extensive grain farming, okay, the grains which are grown. Farm size is greater than 200 hectares. Due to large farm size and sparse population in the region, this type of farming is carried out with the help of machines like tractors and crushers. Pesticides are sprayed with the help of helicopters or planes. Okay, now how do they grow crops? They use tractors, they use crushers, okay, to plow the fields. Then to spray pesticides on the crops, they use it with the help of helicopters and planes. Monocrop, that is a single crop is grown in that particular area, a single crop only will be grown, is the striking characteristic of this type of farming. The crops are wheat or corn. Besides these, barley, oats, soya bean are also cultivated to some extent. Okay, let's see other. Heavy capital investment is necessary. Now, for this type of farming, that is extensive grain farming, you require a lot of money. Okay, since huge expenditures are needed for the purchase of machinery, you require machinery, fertilizers, pesticides, go downs, transport cost, etc. Why you require go downs? When the crops are grown, when the grains are grown, you need to store them. So, you require a lot of money. The problems in extensive farming are droughts, attack by pest, locust, etc., and market fluctuation. This type of farming is carried out in the temperate grassland region. Okay, now next let us move on to plantation farming. Now here the farm size in plantation farming is 40 hectares or above. Now when we see in at extensive farming, there they need a big piece of land, that is 200 hectares. As plantation agriculture is practiced in hilly tracts, use of machines is not possible. Hence, local manpower becomes important. Now, in plantation farming, what happens? They grow plants in the hilly region. So, there what happens? There you can't use any machines, okay, because it's on the slope and on the hill. It takes lots of time. So, they use local manpower. The crop for which the geographical conditions are favorable is planted. This is a single crop cultivation practice too. This type of agriculture does not produce food grains. Only commercial crops like tea, rubber, coffee, coconut, cocoa, etc. are planted. Okay, so all these different types of crops are grown in the plantation farming. Now next let us move on to market gardening. Now this is a small scale production. Okay, market gardening is a type of cultivation developed in modern times. This has developed mainly as a result of urbanization and the ready markets available in urban centers. Farmers cultivate vegetables and other items in the vicinity of urban areas to cater the demands of city dwellers. This type of cultivation works on a principle of economics, demand and supply. This land holding is small. Use of irrigation, organic and chemical fertilizers, low investment, use of manpower, demand of markets, use of science, technology, etc. So, this market gardening is a small production, is a small scale production where you cannot use bigger machines, lots of fertilizers, because this is a small production. It is dependent on good transport network. The quality and price of the product is determined by rapid transport. Hence, this type of farming is also known as truck farming. It's also called a truck farming. Next, we'll move on to horticulture and floriculture. Horticulture is garden farming. Floriculture is flowers. Okay, so they mean the same. Cultivation of flowers and fruits is a subtype of market gardening. Fruits and flowers are the major products of these type of farming. In this type of farming, modern as well as traditional methods are used. Means latest technology as well as the ancient or the old technologies are also used. The size of farm is small and every plant is cared for properly. Here the size of the farm is not too big, it is small. But what we need to do is we need to take proper care of the plants. You know that flowering plants has to be taken care. Okay. In recent times, use of irrigation, chemical fertilizers, greenhouse gases is being made for getting more profit. Major products of horticulture are flowers like lily, gerberia, tulip, dahlia, chrysanthemum, marigold, etc. These fetch a good price in the market. That means these all flowering plants, when you go to sell in the market, you get a good price. Then you get different fruits also like mangoes, custard apples, grapes, bananas, pomegranates, dragon fruits, cherries, oranges, raspberries, strawberries, mulberries, etc. are cultivated in fruit farming. At places like Mahabaleshwar, Panchgani, Pune, Nagpur, Jalgaon, Nasik, etc. Now we also know that fruits don't grow in one state only. They grow in different places depending on the climate. Countries having Mediterranean climate, France and Italy, are famous for horticulture. Let us move on to the next, that is organic farming. Now, in organic farming, the nutrients required of the crops is fulfilled by soil, and therefore, what is organic farming? Which you get of the waste which is left in a house, that is vegetable, fruit waste. When you mix that in the soil gets rich and that becomes organic. Nutrients are also used abundantly to increase the yield. Organic fertilizers are prepared for this purpose. So people make organic fertilizers. Why? If you put chemical fertilizers, the plants will grow, but then it might harm the plant. So instead of that, you can use organic fertilizers. The litter should be decomposed in the ground. So you can see over here, that is how they prepare organic farming in this picture. Grasses like sesbia or jute are also buried in the soil for making manure. So there are certain grasses also buried in the mud, okay, to make them manure. Cow dung and compost manures are used. Vermicompost is obtained for organic waste, that is worms. When farming is done using all wastel matter mixed in the soil, it is called organic farming. I told you all the waste things, vegetable waste, fruit waste, or some other waste, eggshells, okay, they can be all used in organic farming, all the waste products. That becomes what? That way the soil becomes rich and you get a good crop production. For controlling pests, organic pesticides like neem can be used. The crop obtained from organic farming is high in quality. So when the crop grows with this organic fertilizers, its production is very good. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides are not used in such type of farming. Now let us move on to the next point, that is agrotourism. Now agrotourism is a new field of tourism. In the tropics, various types of agricultural products are cultivated. Hence, there is a greater scope for agrotourism. In agrarian countries like rural life, local customs and cultures are utilized for agrotourism. City dwellers are curious about the farmer's life and environment. Many of them visit rural areas just to see this. Agrotourism is financially beneficial for the farmer and his village. So in agrotourism, you don't require a lot of money. Okay, you can do on your own. You can grow any kind of crops in agrotourism. So, after the discussion, you may have realized that those fruits and vegetables that look fresh and attractive. Now, you can see over here, there are certain fruits and vegetables there over here. Now, in the picture, you can see some fruits are fresh and some are stale, right? Some have ripened a lot, some are become stale. Okay, now when you look at this picture, let's see further. After the discussion, when we have discussed, we may have realized that those fruits and vegetables that look fresh and attractive may not have been ripened using proper methods. Nowadays, what do people do? They put a lot of chemical fertilizer, the fruits get ripe faster, right? Some fruits don't even have taste nowadays. So that is because using lots of chemical fertilizers. At times, in order to get the produce earlier, chemicals, pesticides are employed profusely. This facilitates quicker production and the products appear fresh and attractive. It looks fresh, but actually they don't have taste. Okay? However, such products are harmful to health. Also, they do not last long after purchase. Means once when you buy it today at home, it will not last long. After 1-2 days, you'll see that the fruits or vegetables are become stale. Next, let us move on to marketing systems. Now, marketing systems are necessary for making the goods produced by the farmers available to the consumers at a fair price and in time. Okay, we should give a fair price that people can also buy. If you keep the price high, what will happen? The things what you want to sell will also remain and it won't be sold. Okay, so you should give a fair price. The importance of marketing system in countries like India will become clear from the following points. Agriculture in India is scattered over vast areas. That means lots of people are engaged in this occupation, agriculture. All farmers are not organized. Most of the farmers are economically weak. We know that. They don't have a lot of income and cannot market their production on their own. That is why the system of agricultural produce market committees is established at the taluka level. At these places, farmers bring their produce and sell it to the traders. Means they don't sell it directly, they sell it to the traders and the traders sell it. As farm produce is perishable, there has to be a proper arrangement for its sale. Institutes like farmers' organization, consumer society, etc. help in this task and try to protect farmers from the exploitation by agents, mediators, and others. Some of the farm produce is directly used by industries as raw material. International marketings are now become easily available to farm produce due to globalization. Many progressive farmers are using the modern technology in their farm. Nowadays, farmers also are using latest technology. Also, they sell the produce with proper packing. Hotels and malls also require agricultural produce on a large scale. That means hotels, where there are hotels, they also need vegetable, fruits, right? So by advertising on the internet, their product gets sold in local as well as international markets. So let's see, do you know? Israel is a major exporter of fresh farming produce. It is the most advanced country as far as agricultural technology is concerned. It has adverse climate, severe scarcity of water, and more than half its land is occupied by hot deserts. But overcoming all these unfavorable conditions and persistently following the path of modernization of agriculture, it has taken a giant leap in the field of agriculture. So, agriculture is mostly practiced in Israel a lot. Okay, so here we end with this chapter. We will learn the next chapter in the next video. Thank you for listening, children. Goodbye. Take care.